Good evening and welcome to Historic Simracing Organization's Gold Star event of first Coupe de Prix Rainier. I probably butchered the French way of saying that. 1936, which will be in the Voiturettes, or Voiturettes, or however you say it in French. Using the Grand Prix 1936 mod with a add-on created by HSO, I believe, using slightly slower cars than the Grand Prix cars of the day, those days I should say, but still quite a handful to say the least. See one of them going down the chicane. As we can see here, I believe it's one of the Bugatti Type 57s that is in the mod, unless I'm very much mistaken. No, I'm not. Which is probably the biggest car in terms of the body of the car in question. Yeah, they are very heavy, they are very, I suppose you should say skittish, as in they move around a lot when you're trying to get through the corners. And they have a lot of power with very little ground pressure, so you really have to work the cars to get them anywhere.
Well, these are not as powerful as the big Prix cars, but the Voiturettes for sure are a handful because of the limitations of the technology of the day in tires and in brakes. They were, however, much easier to drive than the Grand Prix cars. And we should be seeing a very nice race here because this is probably a track that fits them very well, being so slow in nature.
My biggest, sincerest apology, Richard. I didn't notice you joined us. We have Richard Wilkes with us in the box.
No, it's me, it's Alberto.
And that'll be good because I don't know much about these cars or the period, but I hope you have a bit more
slight
knowledge.
appearance by me. I was able to make it finally to the broadcast, so pleased to be here again with you.
And I'm very pleased to have you with me. I think this is the first
I know
broadcast.
You said Richard Wilkes because you were not expecting me, but...
Oh, sorry, it's Alberto, my god.
Yeah.
Ooh. Even more sincere apologies in that case. Wow. Sorry, Alberto. So let's revise that. We have Alberto Ibanez with us in the podcast tonight. As we can see, a couple of the cars heading through Saint-Evot in this warm-up session. Let's see if we can actually jump on board with anyone of them, if I do it correctly. We have Yves Placé out on the track, so let's jump on board with him and have a ride around this older layout of Monte Carlo. Though
it's not 100% exact the track that was used back then in 1936, because there are more buildings than there were in 36, and also because the start was actually given down near the seaside, near the harbor. But overall the layout, the roads that you see here are exactly the ones those cars raced back then. So I guess we have a fairly accurate track, except I think in the chicane where it was actually slower than this, because you could not by any means go through it as we are seeing the cars do now. This is getting there now. Yeah, look at this. This was actually impossible back then. You had to brake and then swing to the left and then to the right to be able to make it through that chicane.
And what could be said about that chicane is that it's very similar to what we used in the F171 race around this Monaco track. Well, of course, apart from that, it's It certainly looks and feels a bit older than for that track did.
Yeah, that one has been updated. HSO calling him bid for the 71 race. And it was based on manufactured track, I think. Well, this is actually the opposite. It's, I think, the original track created for 79, and then it was converted or modified to look as it did back in the 60s. Anyways, as we said, the layout is quite correct. There were some less buildings, but the track looked like this, and I believe that the car handled more or less like this, which is actually a handful, because they were not as dangerous as the Prix cars, in that you would not use the rear when you gave too much gas, because as we can see, they are always leaving one single rubber mark when they go with excess throttle. And the reason for that is that these cars had actually open differentials. The smaller class, the Voiturettes, they had those open differentials, and that means that when all the power goes down and the car is not completely horizontal, well settled on the track, then all the power gets to the wheel that has less traction, which is the opposite of what you want. And then what happens is this, that the wheel continues spinning, and then you can't, well, you can get forward motion as much as you would want.
Indeed, and that's one of the telling things about who will be quickest around here, because they can get the way towards the rear more than those who surely will be slower. Because, as you say, you don't get to drive if you're putting lateral weight in the car.
Mean that you can easily burn the whole tire and completely destroy it, because it's spinning hopelessly with all that power and continuously rubbing against the surface, getting very hot. So being, well, quite gentle with the throttle here and taking care of the weight transfer and being sure that the rear has enough grip so that you can put the power down is a key here.
Certainly, even more so than we would see in the Formula 1 series that we're doing, for example, where it's still quite important, not as important as these.
The heaviest car by far is the Era, which is 900 kilos, whereas the Bugatti and the Maserati are around 700 kilos. That's actually a big difference, but the Era had a very reliable chassis, and the engine had lots of mid-range power, which allowed it to be propelled quite quickly. But anyway, you can see, for example, Peter Lavak is doing some nice burnout and slides with it. If you are not gentle enough, as we said, you will be easily destroying the tires, the rear tires.
Indeed, looking at the drivers we have here tonight as well, I definitely suspect that Steve Parker should have a decent race here tonight. Hopefully, he's had a bit of bad luck recently, but these cars I hope will suit him quite well.
Well, I'm not going as far as saying that these engines are indestructible, but they are certainly reasonably reliable if you don't push them too much over the brake line. But then, with this car so evenly matched, it's too easy to, in the heat of the moment, to go those extra RPMs, to try to overtake or whatever, and well, you never know what will happen.
Quite so.
With the axis losing traction with the Bugatti was already an outdated chassis back then. It had dominated in the late 20s and the early 30s. But in 1936 it started an outdated car. Only continued to race in this class because this was somehow a gentleman class. So many of these gentleman drivers that were here actually just for the fun of it and doing, well, quite nice exhibitions of sportsmanship and enjoyment with their cars.
Which, as I say, is very different from today when it's all about winning.
So
Nothing else really matters.
now there is so much nowadays with all the sponsors, the TV and everything. But back then they were, nobody knew about these races, the people who attended them and the ones who bought the newspaper on the next day.
Which of course made it more important to seem like a gentleman as well, because if you weren't a gentleman you probably wouldn't be invited for the next one. You see, I'm working on the sound of it, so it still seems a little bit louder than it was somehow. Quick alteration. There we go, hopefully that should solve it. Let's see. Yeah, still not doing that as well. See, to be a bit more doing that, we'll have to do a quick times brief.
So as we see, the Maseratis have already the upper hand here, as they have been. They were the newest model, and Maserati was not driving in Grand Prix, so they had concentrated in the small capacity engines and classes of cars, and this means that they were actually waiting until the rules in Grand Prix racing changed, because they really wanted to go for the bigger classes. At that time they were showing already their possibly the prowess with these smaller cars, and they certainly did a fantastic job, because in the late 30s and during the 40s they really dominated, and their progress was mostly interrupted by the war. Oh, I see you have also make macro 3 wide in some corners. These cars certainly they're pretty slow compared with what we drive normally, but they are so much fun because of that. You could argue that it is equally fun to be going 250 kilometers per hour and being able to spin your wheels on demand.
Well, it's sort of fun, but around this track I'm not sure I would want it to be quite so easy to get sideways as it is with these cars.
Now we usually see pictures of these cars in the internet, and there are some historic events, but you see them like this here, moving around in the track and, well, doing racing as they were intended to, not really holding anything as the modern cars. I mean, everybody is well aware of the importance of these cars historically speaking, so yeah, I'm not going to push them too far, but when you see them racing like this, it's, I don't know, it's a feeling it's so different than it is nowadays. Even in the junior formulas where they are racing slower cars, if you see what I mean.
Indeed, very much so.
So warm-up is over, and we should be going to the race in a moment.
And hopefully it'll be a good one. I don't think we've ever had these Voiturettes on a broadcast before, so hopefully those of you who tuned in live and those who watch it afterwards will enjoy the looks of it.
Okay, so here we go. No warm-up lap. Direct green light.
Okay, let's see if we can get towards... let's do it like this. So Mick Chapman is on pole here. And I think we'll actually a bit incorrectly technically run with the name tags on. Since many of the cars looks almost the same, it'll be a bit easier for everyone, I think, to...
Oops, someone's left. No.
Like this, as the green flag is out and the race is underway.
There you go.
Both the front row guys has a bad start. It's who's that in that white and red sheet? Let's see, it's Yves Placé who had a fantastic start to the race, going up the inside of Mick Chapman here. Looks like he takes the lead going up the hill, and everyone else being very well behind. Looks like everyone. Yeah, looks like everyone is behaving very well here. No incidents by looks of things so far.
Prix is on the lead. Seems to be willing to honor his national soccer team and bring in the honors at Monaco today.
Indeed.
Oh, the hairpin. Oh, that's been much tighter.
Incredible that everyone seems to have. Oh, as Bruno Chacon has a bit of a spin.
Yeah, he came. I guess he was a bit out of control coming out of the hairpin.
It almost.
Because through the tunnel is also quite a tricky place. Chacon is back in the race, it seems. The speeds are slow and the cars are quite tough, so he probably.
Oh, dearie me! Oh, that's a big one. Sorry for that. Jason White just hit the inside barrier on the left going into the chicane and got spat into the other side.
Yeah, I think we have our first of today.
I would suspect so. That was a big one, to say the least.
Crazy as it seems. Back in the 20s, in the 30s, there were not as many dead drivers as there were unfortunately later in the 60s and 70s. I guess people were very, very respectful with these cars now and what handful they were. When they started to be able to go much quicker in the 60s and 70s, casualties started to happen, that was in that regard a shameful period of racing. Anyways,
as Mick Chapman has taken the lead.
Yep.
Suspect he did it going into turn 1.
Greg Della, I think, closes the field. No, it's Bruno Chacon because of that spin. 2 Maseratis and 1 Bugatti. Gallantly driven by Yves Placé. I think he's doing the role of great driver Chacon. Back then, also with this updated class of Bugatti was actually winning races and fighting for honors. But well, Chacon was obviously in a class of its own.
We have almost 3 wide going down the short chute between going down to Portier.
And that photographer on the hairpin. I don't know who got the idea to place it there, but
well, he's definitely getting some great shots either way. As is the photographer at the
I don't know how much
chicane du port.
So Greg Della Cella seems to have this also. Maserati is out and Mick Chapman is opening a small gap. I think he's benefiting from the fight between Yves and Ramos.
Sounds very likely.
In a hard track, so it's 50 laps here, 50 times around the chicane. Oh, there comes David Jacks, who is now up in 4th, followed by Austin Johnson. So many great drivers in the Bugattis. We're going to give the other drivers something to be careful about.
Indeed, and Juha Boos got by Yves Placé going through turn 1, by the way. So I think he probably is pretty happy that he got by, considering, as you said, David Yates and Austin Johnson is not that far behind us. Yates actually makes a slight mistake in Mirabeau runs a little bit wide. Austin almost gets up to the rear end of David's car as David runs wide in the chicane as well.
And another of our long runners, that's David Junt. He is there, lurking as always there in the 5th, 6th position. That's his style usually. I mean, he's always there, never necessarily fighting for the win on the first laps, but always there, lurking around, and always there for the kill in the last laps.
Indeed, he's also the best ERA car at the moment. With
so they are all together there.
Indeed. Well, it's Junt and then everyone else is together in the ERA. In our ERA squad, 3 in a row, and then I believe they are followed by one of the Bugattis.
So Chapman's opening a nice gap in the lead there. And we'll see how tire degradation plays out, because the different driving styles and also how optimistic they are being with the throttle. Whoa, Mick Chapman almost lost it there. Those cars and the brakes are not exactly the most comfortable.
Well, they were still using drum brakes, weren't they, back then, so...
Yes, those brakes have a big tendency to lock. Especially when they are too hot, because it's either on or off.
Indeed.
I should mention that we have today some drivers that are not big-time regulars here, but appear from the odd race, and they are actually veterans of HSO. Never all the time here, but never too far away. This is the case of Pontamil.
Yes, his old mate as well behind him, Karel Marcinishin. I believe both of them are from
Czech Republic, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. It's either the Czech Republic or Slovakia. I'm not entirely sure which of the two, but I know they usually run as a team if there's endurance events and stuff where there's driver swaps. And they are usually fairly fast. I don't think I've seen them won at HSO that often, but they are always around in the
yes,
in the top 10
in those cases.
And another guys who often isn't a regular but often turn up last minute is Simon Wattman driving the number 38 machine tonight.
And he is a big lover of handfuls. He's the guy who will pick the absolute most horrible dog car in the field and enjoy it while it lasts.
Usually, I do though remember him driving one of the best handling cars when we did BTCC 1988 version.
Yeah, I also remember one of the Holden late, and he was much more time sideways than going on straight line.
Indeed.
Oh!
I believe there's been a position change here between Ferguson and Hackman.
Austin is now trying to get by on David Jacks. And Davis is catching up with Tips. His 3 Bugattis are there. I was wondering how these cars were a bit quicker than their real counterparts, but seeing how everybody here is going over out of the road and over the curves and anything possible because of the soft suspension, now I'm starting to see how they're doing it. This is almost a rally cross.
Indeed, but they wouldn't have been doing that back in the day. The cars wouldn't take it for too long. I don't think.
Yeah, you would in the end kill the suspension. All those hits against the curves. everything.
Was, I believe David Yates almost rear-ended Yves Placé on the brakes going into gasometer last hairpin. This definitely looks like the battle.
He did. It was a friendly tap. Hello, I'm here, I'm quicker than you.
That too they wouldn't have done back in the day because I believe
yeah, the chances of bending something or breaking the radiator would probably have been quite big. Also those explosive wheels.
Indeed, that's exactly what I wanted to get to. The radiator is right behind that grille in the front. OSC looks up the inside, going into Mirabeau. This might be running over the curbs. Very slow. Austin Johnson now has a slight chance to go look up the inside. When he leaves a good bit of room for David Yates, really nicely done. I think he got the position. Yep, just about. Nice opportunistic driving there from Austin. Now let's see how he...
It's frustrating when you have to cars that have so much in power, because there's not really a lot that you can do to get by the other car, except expect. Wait for the error of the other guy, but in this case David going to the chicane. Now this can be a bit hairy.
Well, that was a bit hairy indeed. Looks like David hit the curb a little bit on the braking.
Very better run. They were not going to dice it there, but Yves Placé is the main winner of this situation because he's been able to put some distance between them both.
Certainly. But I don't think it'll take more than half a lap or something for David Yates to be back up there.
And David Jant is already on Austin Johnson's tail, not far away, not too far away. He's certainly closing in.
It's very impressive indeed in that ERA. As you said earlier, the heaviest car. You can hear riding on board with him how careful he is being with that throttle.
Yeah, exactly. That's the mark of David Jonatan. I mean, he's taking well care of the car at all times, and that's what always allows him to be there at the end. He's there usually with a car that is in the best possible situation.
Almost. I could take him back to put his feet back on the ground, but I think I'll leave that for another time. There was one event where we were co-driving and it didn't end the way we wanted. But then again, we won later on, so all was good in the end. I do believe that unless Yates and Johnson makes it past Placé in the next, let's say 2 or 3 laps, David will probably be up there and really hassling them for those positions.
And Nick Chapman is really enjoying himself today. Putting a big distance now to Juha Boss. He seems to be really comfortable with his car.
Well, I believe the Maserati is the...
Very smooth, not leaving rubber marks out of the corners.
That's definitely a big difference. And I believe also that the Maserati is the best car in the mod in terms of the numbers, but also I believe have we lost Cal? Unfortunately, we have lost Cal Masinician in the last few laps for one reason or another.
Oh, yes. Looks like a disconnection.
That's very unfortunate. It looked like he was enjoying himself along with Hansa. Oh no!
What happened?
Hansa Mild has blown his engine coming out onto the front straight.
Oh.
Well, that's very unfortunate, but hopefully they enjoyed themselves while they were able to keep going. and now it's really close again between David Jakes and Yves Placé.
Yeah, really using the last available inch of the track.
Indeed.
They are not leaning on the walls. It's just because they are afraid of breaking the car, because otherwise they would be doing it.
Indeed. That's a nice touch as well. I just noticed that the Bugatti Type 57 has the starting handle still in the car.
Yeah. 51 actually is the Type 51.
Oh, sorry, Type 51. I always get those. I got those wrong when I was.
So many different types, and it's actually, well, to be completely precise, is the 51A, because the 51, the normal 51, had something like, I believe, 2,300 cubic centimeters, while this one was reduced to, for the Voiturettes class, to 1,500.
Ah, okay.
A bit more, I don't know if it was compression or whatever, but it got some decent power. Not as much as the other cars,
But still perfectly substantial. Of we have Lavac. I believe he has a puncture on his car. Yet that it's either puncture or a big suspension damage. Not entirely sure, but he's heading into the pits. By the looks of things.
Ah yes, the front right seems to be either damaged or punctured. He seems to have trouble finding the pit. What's he doing?
Could be that they aren't repairing. That was Michal Janak too has actually lost his front left wheel here.
Oh my god.
Deary me.
Janak not as quick as he usually is that we normally see him. Probably not much affinity with these cars for him.
Possibly. I mean, they are very different to drive compared to what we've been driving in the past couple of years at HSO.
No. Well, when we drove the Brem Garden and Prix, we certainly saw people being at first surprised handling of the cars and adapting to it. Now I should mention, if you have a look at Austin Johnson's car close, that he has installed the headlights upgrade, because this car's almost everything was optional. You have the options in this mod. It's very funny because you can have the windscreen as it is now, laying over the hood, or you can have it vertical, so that the driver doesn't have that much wind in the face. You can put the headlights, and I think there are a bit more, some more options there. It's quite funny because, as was the case back then in real life, those cars were completely customized by the owner. They were actually so easy to wrench on them. So
Indeed, and it's great to see. Reminds me of.
So it seems that Peter Lavak and Michal Janak had to quit because, well, they probably couldn't get repairs for the cars.
It's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But then again, that would be fairly similar to what it would have been back in the day, I think.
No, for sure.
Seeing as it.
Because those races were completely carnages. I mean, the cars were not exactly like that, the most reliable machinery. I mean, when we say that some were more reliable than others, that might be true, but it's always something relative.
Certainly. You can never be 100% certain about them being. No matter how much you prepare for the events, you can never be sure that they'll finish, I should say. Which is proved even today by I believe it was Toyota a few years back had engine troubles at first it was to work one of the prototype Porsches had, I believe it was electrical failure with the sort of additional power as David Yates looks up the
Trying
inside.
to make the move for the harping that didn't work.
That was close. But I believe the Porsche had electrical power troubles, so they were slower. And then one of the Toyotas had some kind of similar issue, I believe. And then like 4 hours into the 6-hour race, the other Porsche's engine went. I believe one of the Audi prototype engines also went. So those are sort of the pinnacle teams in that series. And there was a pretty much 60% dropout.
He dropped out with an accident.
I'm sorry, who did you say? Oh no, not Jacob.
Jacobsen. Yeah.
That's really unfortunate. I don't think we'll get it on the replay either.
Well,
Clearly it happened in the chicane. Looks like... Oh, hit
the race and we have already many casualties.
Indeed, Jacob had the same issue that Jason Whitehead had. But one who doesn't seem to be faced at all by the dangers of the track or the other cars is Mick Chapman, who's still enjoying a big lead to Jura Boss here.
And to what team? Until the Bugatti.
And it's incredible.
I think none of the quick drivers in the Bugattis will actually be too unhappy about the race, because it seems to me that they are having lots of fun there with those cars.
Indeed, but there's always that slight bit of frustration when you can't get by a car that you feel is a bit slower than yourself. There's no getting away from it. But I think Daru would be quite happy indeed in the ERA to be that close to... Was Austin is looking up the inside.
There, and Austin Johnson going on the inside. Whoa, that was
nice pass.
Really daring overtaking maneuver. Look at that.
Very impressive.
The inside of turn 1.
I believe David might have had a slow exit of the hairpin, and that's why Austin was able to have a look there. But I think
you really wouldn't trust anybody, many people to do that maneuver.
Certainly not.
It's a good thing when you're driving with David Jackson, people like that. You can always trust them.
Definitely. I don't think I've ever had apart from a near accident at Indianapolis actually, when he decided to go up the inside when I wasn't expecting it. It was my fault essentially because I wasn't expecting it. I've had no issues whatsoever with David in all the years he's been at HSO, so that says a lot about him as a driver, because almost all the drivers I can give one anecdote about something that has happened, but I had nothing like that on David. But as I've been trying to say for a while, I think by far the happiest driver in the field at the moment is David, because he's so close to to David and Austin, who usually is a bit further up the road from him in especially recent F1 1971 races.
Steve Parker in the pits?
Oh dear me, that's a bit unscheduled. That's unfortunate, because I was hoping for him to have a good event,
but he seems to be in the car, and the car seems to have all parts attached. I don't know.
Maybe just a tiny bit of damage, or broke himself somewhere or something. Yeah, it looks like they dropped it down, so they've been changing either tires or fixing some damage on the car. Hopefully he'll be way and running again in the near future here. that pass that Johnson put on David Yates put him further behind Eves once again. So
Yes,
Eves
Eves has bought himself a bit of a gap now.
He's doing a fantastic job of staying ahead when he's under pressure.
This is the difference between the cars is obviously known in the case of the Ducatis, so everything here, all the differences you can see are absolutely because of the driver. Maybe a bit setup, but there can be lots of differences in that regard.
I expect... So go ahead.
Any error here is paid for very dearly, because the cars are so equal.
Indeed. I expect the changes to be that you can do to the cars to be very similar to what you could do in the Group A days, at least in the mod that is around in our factory for that, where you can change, like, you can do some minute changes in the suspension, as in like how high the car is or how stiff the suspension is, but that's all you can do in the suspension. You can't really do much else.
They did not have adjustable dampers or anything like that, so
I think it's so.
Maybe 2 or 3 to choose from, and they changed it completely. So they could add some more leaves on the springs, on the left springs, and well, that was about it. Of course, the only thing the biggest thing they changed was the final gear ratio to adapt the car for the track.
And I'd expect also partly for the driver. If he had a lead foot or a feather.
Here at Monaco is a bit... Well, you need the short gear ratio because you want to make use of all the gears. But then again, when you put it, you get... well, the power is more multiplied when coming to the ground, and you can more easily spin the wheels, so it's a bit of mixed blessing being able to adjust it.
Indeed, I usually, when there is that kind of option, I usually run one gear ratio higher than what would be optimal, mainly because I have a bit of a lead foot.
I think that they will take here a slightly better exit, but they second the tunnel here. It's not going to be possible at all.
But it might have a bit of an opportunity here, right? Decided not to go for it. Getting into the mind of the drivers in the day. Not diving, only going for it when it's clear that there's an opportunity.
Actually, a good amount of the passing was done when the driver in front realized he was just slower and holding up the other car, and he gently waved him by. Obviously not in the case of the competitive drivers, of the ones that were paid for that, but in the gentleman class that was very much the usual thing, so to speak. They had nothing to gain with blocking stupidly or doing crazy maneuvers.
Quite so.
They were just actually spoiling the fun of someone else, so... That's how they viewed it back then.
Yeah, of course, it's perfectly reasonable. And understandable. And partly how they still do it to this day in some races. Though it's far more unusual to see it now than it was back then, as Simon Wattman very sportingly gets well out of the way in for both Eves and the Johnson-Yates battle.
And I'm betting that each of those Bugatti drivers who just got by are looking at Simon's car and saying, "Oh, if I only had one of those Maseratis."
Possibly. Well, then again, that's the beautiful thing about HSO, that we can get all the cars to be reasonably competitive by restricting the cars that each driver can drive. If we know that the driver is a lot quicker than what's good for the series.
And yeah, for example, today Nick Chapman and Juhavos had a good shot at the podium, and in the case of the third position, that's going to be one of the most crazily fought for, because with David John, David Jacks, Austin Johnson and East Plaza, they're in the mix, all quite tightly bunched together. That will be really a strenuous fight.
Definitely.
Oh, accident from Hackman.
Oh no!
What happened to him? Oh, the chicane. Oh, the chicane.
Oh, another one.
So there goes the second.
Oh, exactly the same as the others.
Oh, Jesus. We should put a mark there. Here died Adam Hackman.
Yes, well,
July the 15th.
I do remember one specific crash in that area from around this era. It might have been after the Second World War, but there's like a very old film footage of the crash where you sort of only see the aftermath, the car in flames and just carnage everywhere around the car.
Yeah, but
just after the tunnel, I believe that is.
I think that was in the 1936 Grand Prix, maybe in the wet.
Possibly, I can't remember exactly. I believe it was an Italian, if I'm not entirely mistaken. That was involved in it. Yes, again, as they go through that area of the track, Johnson and Yates are really close to one another yet again. Sliding all over the place coming through the chicane. So great to see these cars move around. And seeing the drivers actually have to work for the speed.
Oh, they sure do.
Compared to, as they sort of said in, I believe it's IndyCar nowadays, they changed the downforce regulations, so they went back to the early 2000s spec where they actually have to work a little bit and try and feel the car rather than just drive and let the downforce do the job. And I believe there's been a couple of crashes because of it as well, because there's been arrow wash for the first time in 10 years or something in the series. Which is sort of great to see that a series can actually think to say, well, it's a bit too easy nowadays, we better revert this a bit so we actually get to see the drivers drive.
Yeah, when you look at the comments and the feedback from the drivers, they have also mixed feelings about that, because they're, well, basically they are being more polite than that, obviously, but they are saying basically that, yeah, okay, it's great to introduce more of the driver talent here, but it would be even better if we didn't have a shitbox to start with. I mean, part of the problem of those crashes and those losing control over the car and that is because the car is not exactly the easiest thing to drive around. I mean, Dallara has been having the monopoly of the category for lots of time.
Of course.
And they have done a brilliant, absolutely brilliant aerodynamic work. They say that the Indy cars are on par or even above the Formula 1 in terms of downforce and that. But yeah, it's exactly that. The car when there is no...
David, okay, hold on. Sorry to cut you off, David had a bit of a moment.
But when it comes to suspension and chassis and that, I don't know, they have been leaving that too much for... Well, as a second thing behind the aerodynamics.
Yeah. I mean, we've I've watched a few of the races this year, and it's great to come back to a series when I watched it in its heyday. That would have been like when it was kart in 90. From 99, 2000 there about, when Kenny Breck was in the series. And they could get all crossed up, but they could still save it by how they drove the car.
Yeah.
In the most recent years, it's been, if the car goes, it goes. You can't do anything as a driver.
Lola from 99, 2000, which is actually the car that Oh my goodness, David Jackson almost kissed the race goodbye there.
That was a save and a half.
Indeed. So that Lola that became the spec car for the Champ Car series up to 2003, that was a very, very good chassis, very good developed car. So they had their, well, a very good base. And yeah, indeed, they were able to drive it. They could do with that car whatever they wanted. But I think I believe nowadays there's a bit of hope for IndyCar. I mean, unfortunately, the world has...
Oh no! Austin Johnson's just started the race. Oh dearie me.
Well,
in the chicane yet again.
Yeah, 50 times going through that chicane is obviously a bit too much.
Certainly so. Sorry to cut you off once again. I believe Ray Riddle is in the pits as well.
Jack's can concentrate now on catching up with Yves Blase. So as I was saying about the IndyCars, there seems to be hope for the IndyCar nowadays, because they are, I mean, they're increasing the number of tracks. The car is looking better than, still not great, but much better than in all the previous years with the crap wagons. And well, I have a wish. It's not a bet because you can say anything, but I have the wish that Fernando Alonso could move full time to the IndyCar series when he believes that his Formula One time is over. And that's a bit like what happened with Nigel Mansell back then in '93. I mean, it's such a big push for the series. It would be absolutely awesome. I mean, it would gain lots of followers. You can just see what happened when he took part in the 2017 race.
At Indy, yeah. The following was amazing.
Yeah, the following was amazing, and if he would do the series full time, now that would be something.
Certainly
I think that the series is very much needing such a boost, because it wouldn't surprise me much. But there are plans for McLaren to enter the series full time, because they are not happy at all with how things are working out in Formula One. And I guess that they are trying to do something like they already did back in the 70s. I mean, trying to either doing in IndyCar, making up for what they could not do at the beginning in Formula One, and maybe, who knows, finding something that is actually useful for Formula One later. They will be having a team, and well, hopefully Alonso could be part of that equation.
Certainly. It would be great to see how he does, because at Indianapolis he was right up there for quite a while in the race until the engine went, but until then he was more or less in the top 10 the whole race, I think. So it's very impressive to see him, especially considering he's more of a road course driver, I'd say, considering he's been in F1 for, what is it now, 14 years or something.
Yeah, and I believe that the ovals nowadays are even harder for the people who come from the road racing, because of what we were talking about before. I mean, it's so much aerodynamic, there is so little feel in the car, that you probably need lots of experience, lots of courage, to be able to go into those Indy turns completely flat with a car that you don't really feel completely. So more kudos to him, because, well, I don't think that's easy at all.
It certainly isn't.
Probably was easier for Nigel Mansell back then. Much better.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect. I mean, Nigel Mansell is one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time, but probably, luckily for him, I don't think it was such a big... Actually, I think it was the opposite back then. The Formula Ones of '91 were giving way less feedback and were much harder to drive. So, but back to 1936. Let's see. Let me check, because I want to know what the lap times of David Jacks have been. So he has been doing lap times in 2 minutes dead. in the last 3 laps, so he's on a mission. And in the case of Yves Placé, he has been doing 159.6 one lap, and then also 2.0 dead. So he's certainly very well aware of David Jacks being behind him, some seconds behind him, and he's feeling the pressure, and he's not taking it easy. He doesn't want to have to go again through the expense of having David breathing on his neck. And I should say also we're 20 laps into the race, and they are probably already starting to feel the tire wear.
It definitely seems like it. Well, definitely in Yves' case, he was spinning up the wheels madly in Casino.
And only 9 cars left in the race.
Yeah.
Not even half race.
Well, that sort of proves how difficult these cars are. As Ray Riddle unfortunately retired as well.
I think that more than half of the retirements have been in the chicane.
Just like F171. I think the main bit of retirements there as well was in the chicane.
David John taking care of his car, not getting impatient. I'm guessing that nobody's going to do any pit stop, so they're going to make it till the end with the tires, and that means that they will basically be driving on soft boxes towards the end of the race.
I sort of suspect rims.
That was close to the wall there.
When I believe
really close. Uncomfortably close.
Indeed, and I believe Yves also had a moment through Tabac. Then I saw tire tracks going towards the inside wall, so hopefully he was able to avoid a wall. But
lots of wheel spin coming out of the hairpin, and that won't make his tires very happy.
It's one of the telltale signs for someone like David to think there's an opportunity here. He's getting a bit. He should be getting a bit slower with that.
Let me check. Yeah, the last lap by Yves was almost a full second slower. He made an error somewhere, and that's exactly the amount of distance that David Jacks has been able to cut from him.
And that would have been, as I suspected, in Tabac, with the time marks I noticed on the inside. And of course David Juntis as well, not that far behind, so this could still become a 3-way duel. And listening to David drive, he's definitely, out of at least these 3 drivers, the one being the nicest to the tires.
Yeah, he can see what Yves Placé is doing, unlike Yves, who is probably not watching in the mirror if David Jacks is spinning the tires or not. So David is probably already well aware that Yves is smoking the tires badly. So maybe he is thinking, well, of course he will be going for any gap that opens if he's close enough, but he's probably already well aware that the tires from the Bugatti in front are not going to be very happy towards the end of the race.
Certainly not, but looking at David, he's struggling coming out. David Yates, that is, he's been struggling out of here, but looks like he has learned his lesson by now. That was a much better and cleaner exit. And of course, David Juntas mentioned is even calmer on the tires than these two, so
finally some reactions on the forum. Michel Janac was not happy with the start because he said someone was asleep in the start and he had problems getting by. He got stuck behind with no room to overtake.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And oh, he said he didn't see his pit box to take repairs. So he probably went by the pit box and then he couldn't reverse because he would be disqualified, and he could obviously not do a full run around.
Of course, and that's also a bit of a downside with our factor, that some mods can be a bit finicky about repairing as well. So if you just overrun, as in not make the pit box when you first stop in the pits, they won't repair any damage at all. Even if you were even if you could reverse.
Anyway, as in the informal Triple Crown that only Graham Hill has, Monaco is there with the Indy 500 in Le Mans, and Monaco is always a regular here at HSO, and the drivers better get used to it because we will be having again a Monaco race next year, though it will not necessarily be Formula 1.
Get everyone lined up, sure.
Everybody's now applauding. Oh yeah, great, Monaco again.
And then they see what we have lined up and they'll be crying their eyes out.
Yeah.
Possibly. But yeah, I believe this is would this be the third year we've done Monaco as a Gold Star event? Because I do know we did the Jaguar series on R-Factor last year. Around here. But I can't remember if we did Monaco 2 years ago. As 2016.
Have a look.
Åcerclinth has a bit of a moment, trying to get the power on, coming out of 48. David Yake's not quite close enough.
So in the Jaguar Challenge, that was the winner was actually Peter Lavak.
Oh,
Second came Yves Placet, and third David Jackson.
that's interesting. So Yves clearly likes Monaco. Sitting in third here.
The home track for him.
Oh, well, I'm not sure exactly where Yves lives, so there may be a French track that's closer that we've been to, but because I don't know if
I'm not so sure if he likes Monaco that much when he has David Jack so close behind.
well, it's I know Top Gear went to Monaco in one of their sort of costly car challenges, or whatever you want to call them, where they just try to find the best car out of a certain price group stuff. And they got to drive a timed lap around Monaco in their cars. They came back to the studio and they were saying like, it wouldn't matter. I think it was Clarkson who said, I always thought Monaco was so great because of where it was, with all the glamour, all the people around it and all of that stuff, but if you picked the track up and just put it in a field in Dorset, for example, it would still be a great track.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he thought.
Probably the worst thing about this track is probably how narrow it is. I mean, it's
certainly
just the layout. The layout is okay, it's a slow track, but anyway. But being so slow makes things so difficult, especially with modern cars that are so much wider. I mean, just have a look at this Voiturettes and also the Grand Prix cars of this era, and you will see.
Oh
that
no, David! Oh, that's him out of the race, unfortunately.
Well, at least he didn't die.
That's always something, but that won't have been a nice experience.
So now it's up to David John to chat with Yves, and he's actually not that far behind.
No, he's been holding on for the whole race here.
I think that this has been his plan so far. He probably has a notepad with the name of all drivers, and he scratched another one out of it with a pencil.
Quite.
You can almost see the notepad in his cockpit.
Indeed. And the pen behind his right ear.
Yeah. And a smile behind the goggles.
Indeed.
Half race now. With the leader 14, almost 15 seconds behind. You have both, I'd say, happily settling for second at the moment. Not willing to do anything stupid.
So,
And Yves ready to defend his third position against yet another contender.
right, so, but a bit further behind, so I think he's quite happy at the moment to have just a bit of breathing space so he can have a bit of a, well, relaxing drive might be a bit too much around Monaco, but a bit of a calmer ride.
Though I should say that no matter how good a driver you are, when you start to see people dropping like flies in that chicane, you must have had some kind of second thoughts each time you have to go by that.
Well, it's when I've driven, especially on this layout or similar layout to this with the chicane the way it is, it's sort of more being a question of you get through than you think.
Ooh,
thank
there
God.
he glanced the wall. David Jones.
Oh dear.
That might have caused problems, but well, remember the last time we did that was with the Grand Prix cars in Brengarten? Bruno Chacon actually got to the podium. He was driving last. I mean, it was absolutely crazy.
Indeed.
Finish ratio with these cars is abysmal.
We have actually a battle on track, although soon 2 laps down, but Steve Parker got by Chacon a couple of laps ago and is now right behind Simon Wattman. Oh, sorry, Simon Wattman, if I'm to say it in Swedish.
Okay.
Just for him to have a smile on his face later on. When Simon is very careful going through the chicane if you compare it to especially the leaders, as he moves out of the way to let... I would have suspected that was more for Chapman, but Parker takes advantage of it and slips by as well. Obviously, unless Steve's carrying a lot of damage, he wouldn't be that much slower than Mick. Although of course he lets him by now.
There he goes.
And then there's a big gap to the next car up the road, which is Michael Drexler, who's had a very quiet race, but looks like he's probably enjoying himself.
And it's quite demoralizing when they go by the main straight and all the cars are there on the right side.
Quite so. Well, I sort of get the feel when I see the... I believe that's one of the ERAs that Mikael is driving. I sort of get the feeling of... there's a video of Peter Brock driving around Mount Panorama, and I think it's like 1980... let's say 86, 87, one of the Holdens, and he's talking about how you drive the track. And going down Conrad, he puts his right arm on the window seal, just like, well, I must just out on a Sunday drive while lapping cars. I sort of get the same feeling when I see the ERA. Just the sort of...
Yeah. That ERA looks like a tank.
Yeah.
Waits like a tank. And goes over everything like a tank.
Quite so. It's a bit like they say about a Volvo. If you hit a Volvo, you get a Volvo mark in whatever you hit the whatever the Volvo hit.
Yeah. So, but what you were actually saying, there was one. I mean, it's always my bad memory, my fish memory for these things. But I remember there was a NASCAR driver that was famous because he had a lighter in the car, and sometimes you would see him passing you on the outside and lighting a cigarette at the same time.
I've heard of that as well. I can't.
That was absolutely demolishing for the morale of the rivals.
Indeed. I too have heard of that. I can't remember who it was though, but I've heard about that story. And they were going like, "You can't have a lighter in the car. That's not good. That's not good for you. I'll do what I want." Sort of situation. There's another situation I've heard about. It was at Le Mans. I'm not sure this is correct or true, so spare with me if it's not, but since we have no action. Well, as I say, that David Junt was trying to go around outside of East Place going through the hairpin there. But there were a driver who was going to drive at Le Mans, and they found him more or less just ahead of the race start, completely drunk. He was completely out of it. So they tried to, they managed to get some life into him and put him in the car, and he was driving around. And they were giving him coffee during the stops for fuel, and he was going like after a few stops, "For God's sake, I can't have the coffee. It's getting me all strange." So they were giving him alcoholic drinks in the pits instead, just to keep the drunken level on a somewhat steady bit, so he wouldn't sober up too much and crash the car.
Yeah. But yeah, of course. I mean, if he was driving okay, then why change anything?
Indeed. I believe
Wasn't
it was
it James Hunt? I don't think.
If he ever did Le Mans, I'd expect that to be how he drove. Bit half drunken with a cigarette in his hand. Sorry, what did you say? I didn't quite get that.
David Junt is already on Yves Placé.
Indeed.
He's already there, putting some pressure on him. And let's see if Yves is ready to, well, tire the next contender. Because he looks more like one of those guys from the contest of Last Man Standing. Well, I mean, he's already been able to these points of no others than David Jackson, Austin Johnson, so
quite so.
I think now the psychological advantage is for him.
Certainly. Hopefully what David has done is learned from the mistakes of both Austin and David to give it just a bit more room going through the chicane when you're behind Yves. I partly expect it to be the case of the chicane being slightly obstructed, so they can't quite see exactly when they should be turning in and just getting it slightly wrong.
And don't forget, again, that one thing is arriving there and a very different one overtaking. And in this case, David Junt is driving a car that is 200 kilos heavier, but the brakes are not much different, so if he is able to make it on the brakes, that would be something, I can tell you.
I wouldn't put it past David, he's a very good driver, so I've seen him pull off crazy moves before. What comes to mind especially is the Michigan 500 in the 88 kart mod, when there were, I think there were 5 cars in the battle for the lead, and David was able to hold on by the skin of his teeth, winning by the smallest margin in HSO history. Unfortunately for you, beating yours and Dana's battle a year before. He was getting very sideways. David backs.
The advantage of the era in this case, there
dear me,
glances that one very frequently, and the advantage of the era here, it's quite funny because it's one of those situations where the car actually having 200 kilos more is in this case beneficial for the traction of the car, because you have so much more weight on the wheels. So it's not just that David Jant is obviously, well, quite fine with the throttle and very careful and has a delicate right foot, but it's also that the era has better traction just because of the sheer extra weight.
Oh dearie me, while we've been talking, I believe both Boss and... No, sorry, Mick Chapman is still running, but Juha Boss has retired.
Oh, yes indeed. We missed it while we were following this fight, so there's only 7 cars now on track. Chacon being the last.
Ooh, it wasn't a chicane this time as well.
What about the Yves? What happened to Yves? Is smoking there? Yves has retired.
Oh dearie me. Oh, an engine failure. Oh dearie me, so the pressure finally got to him, I suppose. He must have... I expected to be that he missed a gear coming out of turn 1. Out of Santa
He missed
Vaux.
the gear.
Yeah, I'd expect so. I mean, either that or he just strained the engine. No, that was too late for there to be a gear change. He must have strained the engine too much. Wow. That's very unfortunate. So that's 6 cars left in this race. And unfortunately, it's 43 seconds between Mick Chapman in the lead and Jonatan in second.
Yeah, it's going to be a long race for everybody.
Indeed.
Actually, they can relax a bit, but you know what happens in these situations? You start relaxing because, oh well, yeah, nothing to gain, nothing to lose, and then bang, you hit the wall.
And that's usually the case.
So, Jonatan, pick your books of jokes. So we can
Too bad I have no box.
continue with What, you don't have jokes books there in Sweden?
Unfortunately not. I do have a few
That
laying
sense of
around,
humor.
but not in a box.
But you do have sense of humor. It's not
partly.
yet forbidden. Not yet forbidden in Sweden, right?
Well, there's a bit of... I sort of prefer the sort of dry British humor, sort of Monty Python stuff.
And I guess you also have forbidden to do dirty jokes about men, women and that.
I don't have many about that as such in a talking term, but I pulled off a few jokes physically with that kind of tone to them. I was watching, there's a British show called QI, which is sort of a humoristic panel show where they are supposed to be, if they can give the correct answer, very good, but it's even better if they give interesting answers. And there were a question about, I believe what they were told was, when the sun goes below the horizon, you press the buzzer. And the sun, you see the sun, it's going down and down and down, and as soon as it gets below the horizon, one of the contestants, Phil Jupiters, presses the buzzer, and the answer he gets is they sort of have a screen behind the panel, where there's like woo, 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 and sort of text if they get it wrong, and it said too late, and he was looking at like, what are you talking about? And the host says, way too late. That was way too late. Then the picture of the horizon comes up, and the sun is barely touching the sort of horizon line as we know it. This is when the sun is below the horizon. You what? Well, you know, because of how the Earth spins and how the ozone layer and everything goes, the sun goes through quite a bit of horizon, so it bends. So actually what we see is a mirage. And that contestant puts on a voice and imitates the host. And then later on they come into the New Zealand bit where, because they are so low on the earth in terms of north to south, because we have some engine car parts in the chicane. Oh, looks like someone has crashed in there, unfortunately.
Man, and Will is there going alone by itself.
Oh, it's Michael Drexler.
Michael Drexler. Oh, crashing when he was in third position. We were
Yes.
talking about losing concentration, and there you see it.
Indeed.
He probably got lost in the jokes you were telling, it was so long.
Indeed. He did what you have both did, got the turn in a bit too late and hit the barriers hard.
Instead of bang.
Indeed. Well, one of the other contestants...
But look at that, Steve Kerr, after having to stop, is now with a... No, not a shot, he's actually in third position, look at that, because when he overtakes, he goes by the position where Michael Drexler actually broke his car, then he will be immediately in third position.
Indeed.
So it's Groundhog Day again with the Olivier Panis
White.
Grand Prix. Oh my god.
If he wins from having to pit for damage, I think we can definitely say it's been his evening. But it is a bit left to go, so I suppose we'll have to see about that.
My guess is that Mick Chapman, unless he's looking at the hood, he will be fearing that he has had some kind of disco and he's racing alone on the track.
Indeed.
Probably the feeling for everybody.
Yeah. I'll come back to finish that sort of joke I was trying to tell. Another of the contestants was saying, like, in New Zealand you get sort of road flares where the sun hits the road. And that's because they are so low on the earth. And the contestant that got the sort of buzzers and was wrong before says, well, they can at least rest assured when they go off the road and get killed that the sun is not there. The way he says that makes it quite funny.
I suppose so. I was waiting to see if the joke was going on.
That's the end of that joke, pretty much.
British dry humor.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm so used to this humor. You know, I like British humor, but I'm used to the Spanish humor, which is much more straightforward and usually involves tits, asses, and things like that. So.
Okay.
It's we don't need, as in the American comedies. One funny thing is that they are always telling the public when to laugh, because you always hear people laughing in the background when something funny happens.
Yeah.
You're supposed to laugh. We don't need any of that here in Spain. The
Certainly
trigger
not.
words, tits, ass, and cock, and all that, they're immediate giveaways.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to such a degree that you have to put on up a sign to clap now or laugh now, you know that the humor ain't working.
Yeah. Let's see. Nick Chapman enjoying his ride. Steve Parker actually on third position now. 2 laps behind. David John somewhere in the middle of nowhere. This is actually already something in Monaco, because to be in Monaco and be in the middle of nowhere, that's a feat.
Indeed. It's usually very flat.
Still alive there, and Bruno Chacon. Probably one of the most constant guys here in HSO. I'm thinking if we take a look at his finish ratio, he's one of the best in HSO.
Probably.
It's like a pit bull. When he pits on it, he won't let it go easily.
Indeed. That's definitely something to pride oneself on. Which is something I've done as well in the past.
Others like me have to be ashamed of that, because my finish ratio is so abysmal. just get distracted.
That's sort of what I feel now, because before the year started I was on 91% on a 91% finish ratio at HSO. But because of the F1 races, the 71 races where I crashed with the Tyrrell, I've dropped to 89%. So it's slightly different worlds in
like
some degree. Sorry?
89 is still double as much as I have, I believe.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
It's sort of the way it's been for me previously, because I've rarely been able to fight for wins outright, but I've always been able to finish.
You know, my problem is that you usually lose concentration on the road tracks. It's funny because I can drive in ovals 500 races, that's fine. And then in road races where the road is more varied and you have to be, I don't know, there's so many different things to do and then reference points and that, and I tend to get bored and bang, crash out.
Completely different to me then. I usually get a bit bored on ovals, which I suppose is why I had a second off at this year's Indianapolis event. I had an incident in the pits with I believe it was Peter Lavach that was waiting for his pit slot to open. I wasn't able to read it, so I thought he was leaving when I came into the pits. But anyway, I was out on track after repairs, and Richard Coxon went by me going into turn 1, and I completely blanked, turned in too much, hit the apron, and had a massive crazy spin going through the short chute between 1 and 2. Just because I suppose I got bored and blanked out with not having anyone to fight with. Just one of those situations.
You remember very well you did not finish this because you have so few of them.
I actually finished the race in the end.
I do instead remember very well the races I finished. There's so few, it's not a hard thing to do.
Quite so.
So. Gold star points were really cheap today.
Indeed. Everyone who is now running will score points, right? I believe it's the top 6.
Yeah, the big news of the race is David Young has cut by 2 seconds the difference to the leader. The bad news is that he's still 38, so he won't catch up with him in the rest of the race. But anyways, it's nice for a change.
Indeed. Although it could also be that Mick is just, well, I can probably slow down a little bit, I don't need to push it now, I have a good big lead, so just be a bit more careful where it's dangerous.
We should be more creative with this broadcast, because I've already told this story sometime, but it's so funny, I'm going to repeat it. But the guy who was broadcasting there in the first Daytona pitch races, he was paid to do well, actually not broadcasting, he was announcing the races on the speakers, and he was sitting very high on one of those ladder climb pods up there, and he of course had a complete vision of the track that nobody else had, because the grandstands were cut low and people were lying, usually drunken in the sand, so they did not have much of a view. And the races were so boring that the guy actually came up with an idea. And what he did was, when the cars were already going to the opposite turn and they were almost out of sight, he started dramatizing everything. Oh, and this driver has gone on the inside, now he's on the sky, no, yes, he changed the position, he's back. Then they were around the corner and he went on like this. But no, the driver in second position is recovering. Yes, he has recovered the position. What a master pass! And of course, when they arrived back to the turn, when he was sitting in the cars were, as they had been on the lap before. But the public was so excited, they were roaring at it. Absolutely amazed.
Typical
And
American.
again, I don't know how much they paid that guy, but it was too little.
Certainly. Well, it sort of gets me remembering another. I can't remember exactly where I heard this now, but no, it was. I heard it during a one of the Le Mans 24-hour races. They were talking about two drivers. I can't remember their names now, but they were racing in the 70s and 80s, and then became marshals at Brands Hatch. And marshals was at Brands Hatch in Silverstone. And at Silverstone, they were marshalling and was up at Stove Corner. And they, back in the day, were quite, when they were racing, they were quite extravagant with the way they behaved. And that sort of carried over when they were marshals. So when the track was still green, oh no, David Junt hit the wall. That looks like heavy damage. Oh, it is.
Oh, he must be cursing himself. That car looks crippled to me.
It certainly seems to be.
Parker is going to win this race at this rate after doing this stuff.
Definitely possible.
Yeah, that era's not going anywhere.
Well, if he has a good bit of luck, they can repair it, but it'll take quite a while.
Let me see. Where is he now? Well, it's reasonably close to the pits. He's limping there. He's going to be able to make the chicane, fortunately, because the external wheel is the correct one.
If he had damage on the left front, I don't think he would get around that hairpin, would he?
Where is his pit spot?
Looks like it's right here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it looks like they'll
repairs.
They'll certainly try. The question is how long the repairs will be.
Yeah, they're certainly not going to be quick, but time's ticking, and Steve Parker now is probably going to be able to get back at least one of his laps. Well, maybe even two, because actually what put Steve 2 laps down was the repairs he did.
Indeed.
So anything could happen here. So David Junt's car is already down from the jacks. Let's see.
As Steve gets really close to the barriers and the chicane.
Well, we can't see what David Junt's invisible crew is doing, but I would bet that they are going to be able to get the car back on track.
Certainly back on track. The question is how drivable it will be, I think.
There comes Steve. That's one of the laps, him.
Yeah.
And David Junt must be biting his fingernails to the bone.
Certainly.
There goes one lap. Ah, he's back on track now, David Junt. So, one lap visit for Steve Parker. That's unfortunately won't give him a shot at better honors.
Well,
though it is my bet that David Junt will be much more careful now, and we still have to see if his car is really in perfect running order.
indeed.
He might have gotten the biggest thing repaired, but I see he's now cautious, very cautious in this one. Yeah, that seems to me he's driving quite slower. Probably a bit of fear of tank slapping if he goes too far.
Yeah, he's probably feeling out how the...
How Steve Parker there in front? Yeah, Steve just went by the hairpin. Let's see.
I think this will be the slowest he's gone through the chicane when he comes there. A few 100 yards.
We'll see when he does the next lap. There will be a flying lap.
But why might we wait to see how his car goes? I'll finish off what I was saying. So they were marshalling at Silverstone for a sort of an half endurance race. there were an incident at Stowe, so they were waving the yellows, but instead of just standing at the marshal stand waving, both of them were halfway out onto the racetrack waving the yellows, keeping the drivers way to the inside of the corner to keep them away from the incident. But all the rest of the track was green. Usually back then, but so late 80s, early 90s, they would put out a safety car, but the safety car wasn't out there yet. So everyone was steaming in there, racing hard like there was no tomorrow, and they were standing there in the middle of the road, waving the yellow flag.
The Marshall version of the Russian roulette.
Indeed.
So I would say that Bijan's car has recovered more or less, because he's already pushing it in some corners. And he went pretty quick through that chicane. But we'll see. Chasing now Steve Parker, but with one lap down that Steve is obviously no threat to David Jan's second position.
Not unless David makes another mistake, and seeing as he's done one, it wouldn't be too far-fetched an idea for him to possibly do another one.
And I'm looking at the Gold Star standings at the moment, which is led by Austin Johnson, 25 points, David Jacks, 20 points, Richardson, 12 points, Skal Mikula, 12 points also, Peter Lavak, 10 points, Grant Riddle, 8 points, David John, 4 points, which means that he will be getting now points boost. I believe that'd be 10 points, because of the scoring system.
I think that's it.
There's well, Austin got 15 because of the Indy 500. Maybe David Jack gets 10 because the length of the race also has a role to play there.
But I believe it would be like 10, 6, 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 or something like that.
Yeah, well, if it's 6 points, he'd be getting up to 5th, paired with Peter Lavak. And if he gets 8 points, he'd be paired with Richard Coxon and Pascal Mikula in 3rd position.
So he
well,
would definitely
would put him actually with 14 in 3rd position, but no huge changes there expected.
Apart from David Clummy. And of course Mick getting in.
Catching up with Steve now. So yeah, the repairs on the car. Well, obviously he has fresh tires now,
which will definitely make a difference.
Changed them, only that was many more laps ago. So everybody, if they manage to finish, there's 9 laps to go. Everybody will be getting top 5. Because it's only 5 cars in the race.
Indeed. I believe all of them will be happy. But maybe especially Mick, who I don't think has... he might have 1 or 2 wins. Class wins, but I don't think he has an all-out win in HSO yet.
And if anybody had some doubts, I think that this is the good proof that we should be shelving this mod for good now, because people don't seem to be able to finish races properly with it.
Well, if it is shelved, then I'm very happy that we was able to put them on screen for at least one event. But I mean, I sort of...
in racing organization, I think it was only fair enough that we made at least one race with the big Grand Prix cars and one race here with the Voiturettes. But I don't want what would have happened if we would have tried to do the German Grand Prix on the Nürburgring with the big cars.
Yeah, that was my idea, and it would have been very bad. It surely would have been very bad indeed.
I think it's actually a problem of
It certainly is.
mentality, of attitude, because we're used to racing so different cars in such a different manner. I mean, these guys took it way easier.
It's more a question of drive it to about 70% of the car's limit and leave it there. Unless possibly if you were at like Le Mans and it was 1 lap, 2 laps to go, you would possibly have seen some of the pro.
And Mick Chapman really has the upper hand of that car, because he's really driving beautifully. You can see the car moving, sliding, but always in a very controlled manner. And he seems to be really enjoying it. You see the car, it's really on track as it looked in real life in footage. So that's because he really found the proper way to handle it around the track.
Indeed. This also puts now I can't remember the name because I'm so bad at names, but I think you would. He drove for Alfa Romeo, I believe, won the 1950. I think he won 3 or 4 drivers' championships in the 50s, running in the Grand Prix.
In the 50s for Alfa Romeo?
Yeah, I believe he drove for Alfa Romeo. It could have been for Mercedes. But he won drivers' championships in the 50s.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember very much of that era, except Fangio.
Ah, indeed, that's the name. Thank you very much.
Fangio?
Yeah.
Remember Fangio?
I completely blanked. I'm so bad at names.
Good God.
But anyway...
Good God.
But indeed, anyway, I heard about him.
That's like if you're Christian and didn't remember Jesus Christ.
Indeed. My sincerest apologies to everyone for not remembering Juan Manuel Fangio's name. But anyway, he was the kind of driver who would say to someone in the public around one of the corners before the event, he would put like a dime, a piece of coin on the track, and he would say to someone in the audience that in the race I will hit this coin while I drive, and he would then go around the track and hit that coin in the race, which is such an amazing thing to be doing. And also, this I heard on Top Gear, so take it with a bit of salt if it's wrong. But he, ahead of a race on, I believe it was either Cuba or in Mexico. I believe it was in Cuba. He was abducted by some militarists before the race, and then was released so he could still race. But the press was talking to him and asking him, like, these militarists, these abductees, were they bad to you? Oh no, they were perfect gentlemen. was his reply, and then he left to go and take part in the race.
Well, you see, that thing with a coin is something that Sir Jackie Stewart would have never have done. He would have picked the coin, take it in his pocket and go on with whatever he was doing.
Indeed.
That matter. There was a very well-known conversation he had with Frank Williams, negotiating an improvement in his car. He was testing one of the cars, and he was demanding lots more money from Frank Williams, who is well known
for being a bit of a
guy that won't give you a penny more than half of what you're worth. So
indeed,
he was there coming in the pits, and Williams asked him how the car was. And Jones looked at him and said, "It's not bad, but you know, the ride is very, very harsh. It's hurting in my ass." So Frank Williams told him, "Well, why don't you sit there on your wallet?" And he said, Because you don't give me anything to put in it and it will still become uncomfortable. That's a conversation while they were testing the new car.
Now that's a proper reply, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, just give me something to put inside it, or it will be still very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Indeed. My God, those were the days, weren't they?
Yeah, probably. So, 45 laps into the stand-up comedy show. I mean, Monaco race.
Indeed. Well, Mick Chapman in the lead by, I believe, a full lap now. He has indeed full lap in his Maserati, putting it to very good use. Now, by the looks of things, taking it very nice and easy. At least by the sound of things. Second for David Hunt in the first of the ERAs, or eras. Doing a... Apart from that slight mistake we saw with hitting the barriers, a very nice job. And yeah, having seen others retire, he's taking advantage of it, more or less as usual. Just sitting back and watching the action unfold. And third, of course, for Steve Parker, who had repairs to do early on in the race, but has stuck in there, and now sitting in a very nice position in his ERA. Fourth for Simon Wattman, the Swede, jumping in last minute, doing a very nice job in the Maserati. They're sitting in fourth and more so surviving in this race. And of course Bruno Chacon in fifth with... that's actually another ERA, I thought it was a Bugatti. So clearly the ERAs would seem to be the easiest cars to drive around this track.
Yeah, or the toughest, take better the hits against the walls.
Indeed, that could definitely be the situation. As you said, they would just pull down the barriers and go through them, with them being such tanks. Whereas Mick Chapman had a bit of a moment lapping Simon Wattman in Mirabeau, but looks like both of them survived.
Well, the eras were, I mean, the Britons were back in the time racing on their own in their Iceland, and they were not having much to do with the rest of the continent. So in 36, 37, all that, they were racing almost a very different class, with very different cars. And when the Germans entered the race at Pinton in 1937, that was absolutely a shock to everybody in Britain. The drivers knew what was happening in Europe, but the public in Britain had absolutely no idea. There is a well-documented anecdote about that. It's in the internet. It comes from a book called When the Germans Came to Donington. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to read it, just because we have time. And it says something like this. That was a journalist that was describing the impression. So, away beyond the woods, we heard the approaching scream of a well-tuned ERA, and down the winding slope towards us came Raymond Mays. He changed down, brakes, skirted around the hairpin, and was going. "There's the wind," remarked one of my friends. Knows his course backwards. Half a minute later came the deeper note of a 2.9-liter Maserati, and Prince Peter on base of Siam shot past us, cornering with the precision to mark him as the master he was. "Or him," said another eventual winner. We wait again. Then they came. Far away in the distance we heard an angry, deep-throated roaring. as someone once remarked, like hungry lions impatient for the arena. A few moments later, Manfred von Hautschitz, red-helmeted, brought a great silver projectile snaking down the hill and close behind his teammate Rudolf Caracciola, then at the height of his great careers. The two cars took the hairpin, brow shields almost sideways, and rocketed away out of sight with long plumes of rubber smoke trailing from their huge rear tires in deafening crash of sound. The startled pressman gazed at each other abstract. It's true, asked one of them. So, that's what they are like. That's what they were like. Well, they were absolutely destroyed by the engine. There's actually of one of the cars taking the flag, and it's jumping all four wheels in the air. So it's like, I mean, those things go off. They were so damn.
Indeed.
So, Chapman going once again through the hairpin for the 48th time.
So 2 more to go.
Now waiting with his pit crew to start putting the champagne in the ice.
I think they've had that champagne in the ice for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, but they are superstitious, you know.
Fair enough. Oh yeah, it's Maserati, of course. The Maseratis are usually a bit temperamental, so... Looking at his... Oh,
yeah, come on, don't get us started with the admin course. The broadcasting course.
As I was saying about the Maserati being a bit temperamental, Chapman had a very loose moment going through Massenet.
Yeah, well,
at the top of the hill.
I think that these tires are probably no longer round anymore.
I dare to say he probably has no rubber on them at all.
Yeah, they only vaguely resemble something that once upon a time was a tire.
Very much so.
So let's see. And even if this is the smaller displacement class, I'm guessing that everybody will be absolutely crippled after the race. Very much total on a 2-hour race, which it has been.
Well, I did take these for a spin. I took the more specifically the ERA for a spin, but I took it for a spin around Targa Florio. I believe it's like 30 something Ks long. The old track in the Italian islands.
It's actually, I believe, 70 something kilometers.
70, my god, my apologies.
I believe.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, so. But anyway, just the ERA around there was a real handful. I really had to work it. And it's like...
These were not cars designed to be the limit constantly.
Certainly not.
Like you said, you have to be driving something like 70% all the time. And only use the rest of it when you really need it, whatever maneuver. So, almost there for Mick Chapman.
Yeah, sorry, this is the last lap, isn't it? Let's bring out the white flag. As he's heading...
He's getting victory. I don't see his girlfriend online. You know, and it's always the same thing. Where is the policeman when you need it?
Indeed. As he goes through Portier for the final time, let's see if we can safely maneuver through the tunnel and then the chicane de Port. If he goes through the chicane at down here, I think he will be home free for the win. Please don't mess up now, Mick. That wouldn't be a good show. As he slows down massively for the chicane. So he maneuvers the chicane safely, goes through Tabac again, very slow and steady. Really wanting to win this race as he goes through the last straight, and this has been a masterclass from Mick. keeping it out of the walls and at a very nice pace as he goes through and into gasometer.
That if he wants to celebrate, we will be seeing the first rim burnout.
Indeed, there's a lot of tire smoke as he goes across the finish line and takes the win. Congratulations, Mick, fantastic drive right there.
Amazing, where's he going?
Difficult to say as David Junt goes through this. Yeah.
He's probably willing to crash it in the chicane, just for the hell of it.
Indeed. As David Junt goes across the line with a bit of wheel spin to finish second. And Steve Parker goes through to back, have a bit left of the track to go.
Beautiful breakfast coming back from that Åcerclinth stop to be on the podium.
Very much so.
And British machinery must be proud today, because 2/3 of the podium is the Eras.
Indeed. As he crosses the line, finish third.
Getting the checkered flag.
Really nice drive, Steve. Good job.
Yeah.
As we had Simon Wattman cross the line a little while ago, as it looks like has Bruno Chacon. Yes, indeed. So that's all the finishers of this race. So a really good job from everyone, to be fair. These definitely aren't easy to drive. And yeah, pretty good fun to watch, although unfortunately the battles got broken off a bit too early. Yeah, I believe we'll just wait for a little bit, see if any of the drivers wants to join us for a post-race chat.
Anyway, I must go now because it's a bit here.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
To broadcast with you.
Thank you, the same to you.
Actually a broadcast at all.
Sadly, it was a good bit of fun.
See you next
thank you for
time.
joining me. See you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.
User disconnected from your channel.
So that's Alberto who helped us with the event broadcast. Big thank you to him once again. And yeah, that was that will definitely have been a difficult one for everyone by the looks of things. Definitely an attrition race, as it would have been technically back in the day as well, but more because of lack of reliability from the cars. But it looks like no one is heading over here, so I guess with that we'll thank you very much for joining us for this first Coupe de Prince Rainier event, and for hopefully enjoying the partly crazy broadcast we put up here. But anyway, until next time, which I believe will be next week when we have the last race before the summer break of August for the Can-Am race, which will be at Edmonton. So that should prove to be a lot of fun and a lot of interesting stuff going on there. But until next weekend, thank you very much for joining in and for watching, and I hope you have a nice evening and a good week ahead. Good night.